Shakumaku, everyone. Welcome to this week's Iraq briefing, where we tackle some of the top stories shaping Iraq today. I'm Erik Gustafson.
And I'm Omar Nidawi.
Omar, today we're breaking down why U.S. engagement in Iraq still matters. We'll focus on 10 U.S. interests in Iraq that have shaped U.S. policy for decades and remains of central importance, not just for Iraqis, but for Americans. As Iraq continues to recover from years of conflict, corruption, and regional interference, greatly exacerbated by climate change, the continued attention and support of the U.S. government in a measured, responsible way remains critical to protecting core American interests. These include preventing a resurgence of ISIS, stabilizing global energy markets, countering the influence of Iran and other rivals, and supporting security of key U.S. allies and trade partners. Recent cuts to foreign assistance, including an effort by Elon Musk to dismantle U.S. aid under the Trump administration, are already disrupting Iraq's ability to address major national security challenges. Senior Iraqi officials reported earlier this month that the loss of U.S. aid is hampering their plans to repatriate thousands of Iraqis from Syria's al-Hol camp. By last estimate, this camp had a population of 60,000 people, including families with ties to ISIS. That camp has been described as a ticking time bomb for global security. So let's get into it. Omar, I know you're a security analyst, so what's your list of vital U.S. interests in Iraq? Why don't you get us started with the first five?
Okay, so U.S. interests in Iraq are at the heart of the broader U.S. interests in the Middle East region, where we have enduring themes that have shaped policy for nearly 100 years. And these revolve around energy and security. And security here includes, of course, a number of themes such as counterterrorism, protecting U.S. allies in the region, and preventing the spread of weapons of mass destruction. And there's also the issue of denying access to the region or control of the region to rival powers. And this ranges from, Nazi Germany in the 1930s through World War II to the Soviet Union during the Cold War and to rivals such as Iran, Russia, and China today. So I'll go through a list of five key issues here. And at the top of the list is counterterrorism and homeland security. And this is important because Iraq remains a front line in the global fight against violent extremism. And continued U.S. support for Iraq's military and security institutions is crucial to ensuring the lasting defeat of groups like ISIS and preventing the emergence of new generations of extremists. Failing to address conditions in places like Al-Hol, which you just mentioned, risks exporting radicalism far beyond the region's borders. Although ISIS today seems to carry out a lot of its operations and expansion in places like Africa and Central Asia, the fact is Iraq and Syria remain the main centers of ISIS leadership. ISIS leadership remains rooted in these countries. Case in point, just last week, a joint U.S.-Iraqi intelligence operation led to a CENTCOM strike in Anbar province of Western Iraq that killed the number 2 ISIS commander who was in charge of global operations for the terrorist group.
All right, so what's number 2?
Number 2 is regional stability and countering Iran's WMD program, weapons of mass destruction. And here, it's important to strengthen Iraq's sovereignty because that helps blunt the influence of Iran-backed militias, enforce U.S. sanctions on Iran, and also limit Tehran's ability to destabilize the region and fund groups that are hostile to U.S. interests and U.S. allies. And these include Hezbollah and Houthis, and of course the Iran-backed militias in Iraq. And Iraq plays a key role in U.S. efforts to contain WMD proliferation and deter Iranian ambitions in this regard.
Number 3.
Okay, number 3, I think, is not a surprise to anyone, and that is energy security. Iraq is a major oil producer, number 2 producer in OPEC. The country produces nearly 5% of the world's oil supply. Even in a more energy-independent United States, global prices remain shaped by market volatility and supply and demand calculus. And so disruptions to Iraq's energy sector, whether due to war, corruption, sabotage, or misuse can reverberate through global supply chains and raise prices at the pump. U.S. interests are therefore served by a stable, growing, and transparent Iraqi energy sector.
All right, so energy. And then number four.
Number four, we have geopolitical competition with rivals, as we mentioned earlier. And today it's Russia and China. Iraq is a country that sits at a geopolitical crossroads. Without robust U.S. engagement, China and Russia are poised to expand their influence throughout the region through infrastructure deals, arms sales, and diplomatic pressure. And therefore, continued U.S. presence and partnership help ensure that Iraq remains a sovereign, democratic state aligned with international norms, not a strategic asset for authoritarian rivals.
All right, and number five.
The last point that I want to make here is about U.S. credibility and global leadership. And this is related to the fact that the U.S. has been involved in Iraq for a long time. The U.S. legacy in Iraq extends over decades, and continued constructive engagement reinforces American leadership and signals to allies and adversaries alike that the United States does not abandon its partners or retreat from responsibility. U.S. leadership in Iraq today means fewer crises tomorrow. Now, as I went through these 5 points, it's needless to say that these are just the high priorities from a national security and geopolitical perspective, and not really an exhaustive list of issues at stake. As many viewers know, broader national security interests extend into many other areas. And Eric, you, as an Army veteran who's worked in Iraq and on Iraq for 3 decades, running our organization, EPIC, I know that you have other points to add to the list, right?
Yes, thank you, Omar. I have five as well, so we'll get up to 10. Indeed, national interests encompass more than hard security and geopolitical competition. What many people refer to as soft power, things like diplomacy, aid, and even cultural exchanges, these aren't just nice to haves. They're critical tools to advancing U.S. interests in ways that U.S. military and economic support alone can't. The tools and approaches may be different, but the overarching goals are the same: stability, security, and partnerships that make the world a better place. So I'll go on to number 6, preventing state failure and refugee crises. Let's be honest, Iraq's institutions are still weak, and sectors of the economy, like agriculture, are struggling, while other aspects, including an overdependence on oil and the public sector, are not sustainable. If we walk away now, we risk undoing the progress made in the years since the territorial defeat of ISIS. Collapse here could mean mass displacement, chaos, a crisis that spills across borders. That's why U.S. support for diversifying Iraq's economy, creating jobs, especially for young people in Iraq, and helping displaced people rebuild their lives isn't just charity, it's preventative. It stops costly emergencies before they start.
Indeed, Iraq is full of flashpoints like that, where failure to cement stabilization efforts can lead to relapse into crises. What's number 7?
Number 7, anti-trafficking, rule of law, and atrocity prevention. So Iraq's become a hotspot for human trafficking and organized crime. By helping reform courts, train police, and tackle corruption, we're not just protecting vulnerable communities, many already traumatized by years of war. We're also disrupting networks that threaten global security. And let's not forget, after the horrors of ISIS, the U.S. has both a moral duty and a strategic stake in making sure atrocities don't happen again, supporting justice for survivors, protecting minorities like the Yazidis, and pushing for fair governance isn't just the right thing. It's how we break cycles of violence and build trust.
Absolutely right. I mean, that had so much to do with how ISIS emerged in the first place. What's number 8?
So number 8 is democracy and good governance. Ask everyday Iraqis what frustrates them most, and they'll say corruption and a broken political system. I know, Omar, you and I talk with so many, and we've interviewed and we've done the report on the Tishreen movement. It's a recurring theme. That's why backing free and fair elections, sharing power locally, and empowering civil society and independent media matter. It's not about imposing American values. It's about helping Iraqis fix their own system peacefully. When citizens can hold leaders accountable, it creates room for more responsible leaders to emerge, laying the groundwork for durable partnerships between Americans and Iraqis.
And for our audience, we will have a new report on what to expect in the upcoming elections, which Iraq is scheduled to have in October in the coming weeks. So stay tuned to that.
Number 9, climate security and resource management. Iraq's one of the most climate vulnerable nations on Earth. Water shortages, desertification, crop failures, these aren't distant threats. They're happening right now. But here's where there's an opportunity. By teaming up on gas capture, renewable energy, and water management, we help Iraq achieve energy independence, reducing reliance on Iran, by the way. We cut harmful emissions and prevent climate-driven migration crises. It's a triple win: security, climate action, and stability.
Indeed. What's number 10?
Well, number 10, this should be music to the ears of businessmen, including our current president, Donald Trump. Number 10 is trade and investment opportunities. Iraq is an increasingly important trade partner and a growing market for American goods and services. I'll give just 2 examples. Right now, GE is helping to modernize Iraq's infrastructure, including power grids, vitally important for any Iraqi or American who has ever spent a summer in Baghdad. And another example, Valmont Industries, which is based in Omaha, Nebraska, not far from where I was born, actually. Valmont Industries is supplying Iraq with modern irrigation technology and greenhouses. But investors need stability. Staying engaged now means shaping a future where American businesses aren't just welcome, but essential to Iraq's growth.
Oh, thank you, Eric. Excellent points, really. But with all that in mind, what should the U.S. be doing to advance its own interests in Iraq?
So while past administrations have at times overreached in Iraq, I don't even have to give you the example. I think everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. Retreating to the opposite extreme, one of complete disengagement and withdrawal from the world, carries its own serious risks. A hands-off approach invites instability, empowers malign actors, and leaves a vacuum that others will fill, often to the detriment of U.S. security and influence. Strategic, measured engagement protects our long-term interests in a volatile region. To translate this into some more specific recommendations, I'm going to give you 8 for the current Trump administration. Number 1, sustain and expand USAID, State Department, and INL programs in Iraq. INL, by the way, is the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs. This would focus on improving governance, justice reform, climate action, minority rights, and civil society, among other areas. Recommendation number 2, prioritize climate and environmental diplomacy in U.S.-Iraq bilateral frameworks, especially water security, clean energy, and natural gas capture. Number 3, strengthen anti-corruption partnerships with Iraqi oversight bodies and civil society watchdogs. Fighting corruption is incredibly important for the stability of Iraq. Number 4, support inclusive political processes and decentralization to address local grievances and strengthen democratic institutions. Number 5, invest in youth employment and education programs to reduce the economic roots of radicalization and militia recruitment while creating longer-term economic growth and stability. Number 6, maintain a modest, conditions-based U.S. security presence to support counterterrorism efforts, protect U.S. personnel, and build the capacity of Iraqi security agencies, including, I should add, Iraq CTS, the Counterterrorism Services, and FIIA, the Federal Intelligence and Investigation Agency. Number 7, protect and expand space for U.S. business engagement in energy, tech, and infrastructure, leveraging private sector partnerships. And number 8, help Iraq develop capacity to manage al-Hol returns and reintegration. Again, this is the camp we were talking about. That includes trauma care, community stabilization, and preventing extremist recidivism.
Thank you, Eric. I completely agree, especially when it comes to corruption, supporting democracy, and good governance, because these are, when you have corruption and undemocratic governance, those are the spaces where Iran's proxies have been flourishing inside Iraq. So you serve U.S. interests by advancing anti-corruption efforts and supporting democracy in Iraq. Now, I have a question for you. How do you respond to the voices, and many of whom are running really the show in Washington, D.C., the voices that argue that foreign assistance is wasteful and that putting America first means expecting instant gratification for the money that we spend on aid abroad?
Well, I think that's the question of the hour right now. During an official call with the U.S. aid community not long ago that I was on, the current U.S. Foreign Assistance Director at State, Peter Morocco, asked, why is a dollar in the hands of a foreigner better than a dollar in the hands of an American? Similarly, Elon Musk and even President Trump have portrayed U.S. foreign assistance as a loss, a zero-sum game. But this view, I think, ignores the evidence. Foreign aid, including our engagement in Iraq, is not charity. It is a strategic investment, accounting for less than 1% of the federal budget. That advances shared interests, prevents costlier crises, and makes America safer, stronger, and more prosperous. Iraq is not a battlefield to be won or lost. It is a nation of more than 46 million people, many of whom continue to look to the United States as a partner in peace, progress, and reform. With smart, strategic investments centered on governance, security, climate resilience, economic opportunity, and human dignity, the United States can help Iraq move forward, and in so doing, safeguard our own enduring interests there. As experts from across the foreign policy spectrum will say and agree, a sovereign, stable, and inclusive Iraq remains firmly in America's vital interests.
Well said. Thank you, Eric. That's all for this episode. For more news and analysis, visit us at enablingpeace.org. And if you value this content, please like and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, ma'as salama.